The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Robie and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
It's episode 88 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Welcome back again, Hokie Nation. I'm Jason Bryant today, talking about the 2019-20 wrestling schedule with head wrestling coach Tony Robie. Coach Robie, how the last couple weeks been for you since we last chatted?
Things have been good. Been training hard and getting ready for the season, and just enjoying this time of year before the craziness starts completely. So pleased with our training up to this point, and recruiting's been going well. Got another big commitment from a kid in the class of 2020, so was really excited about that. And things are good. We're excited to start competing, though. I'll say that much. I think for everybody, this time of year is tough for our guys, just because it's I guess it's a little bit boring. It's a little bit mundane. They come in, they're wrestling each other. They're getting their weight down for the first time. So, it's kind of a long, the fall's long for our guys. We're not traveling. We're not competing. It's not quite as much fun. So, getting through that though, and excited for the start of the season.
Before we get to the actual schedule breakdown this year, a few updates to make Hokie Nation aware of if they haven't already read about it. Mekhi Lewis finishing 5th at the Continental Cup in Russia, which was his first senior-level freestyle tournament at 74 kilos, while Ty Walz finished with the bronze medal at 97 kilos at the same events. Thoughts on Mekhi and Ty's performances in Russia? I'm not going to ask you how to say the names because that's my job, but what's it mean for them to be out there and performing, not just for Team USA, but for the Southeast Regional Training Center?
Well, I think it's great experience for these guys. Not only the competition part of it, especially for Mekhi. I mean, Ty's becoming a little bit of a veteran on the international travel scene, and everything that entails. But I think for Mekhi to go over to a place like Dagestan and experience that just culturally and travel-wise and logistically, and he lost his bag, or the airline lost his bag, so he had a lot of adversity outside of wrestling that he had to overcome. And for him, just, there's a lot of things that you probably don't think of or take into consideration that can affect you on those kind of trips or adventures. So great experience for Mekhi to go over there to compete against some of the best competition in the world and in a different environment, and for him to get really uncomfortable, not only wrestling wise, but I think just in terms of his comfort of sleep, food, all of those things.
So did he get his bag back?
He did get his bag back, but I'm not sure it was until he got back to the United States. So in fact, he just got back, I think, when he got back into town yesterday. I just saw him for the first time since he got back briefly about 10 minutes ago. So I didn't really have a lot of time to talk to him, but so he did get his bag back, and he seemed like a pretty happy guy to be back in the United States.
Yeah, just as long as his phone's working, right? Because that's kind of a thing with him.
His phone's working. He can, he's pretty picky about what he puts in his body food wise. Not always necessarily in a good way, but as long as he can get some good food in him, and I think feel good and get some sleep, which he really doesn't have a hard time sleeping. But I just think being comfortable again and being around his friends and getting back to the United States. Anybody who's been on a long trip overseas understands that, and you more than anybody, Jason, as much as you travel. But I think it's just good for him to be home.
Yeah, my wife will echo the same thing about me being home, not necessarily about Mekhi. They've never met. Let's clear that up right now. Last episode, we brought in new volunteer assistant coach Jared Haught, 3-time All-American for the Hokies during his career. What's it been like now to work with Haught in a coaching role versus the relationship you had with him as a student athlete?
It's been very good. Jared's the kind of guy that his attention to detail on everything that he does is off the charts. So he's really sunk his teeth into the coaching role that he has here. He's really, taken a lot of time and effort to not only work with our guys, but, to think about the areas that they need to improve individually and watching video and spending a lot of time, in the room and outside of the room trying to help these guys get better. So, Jared's the kind of guy you only have to tell him to do something one time and it's going to get done. That's just the way he is and the way he operates. So, I knew when we had an opportunity to bring him back on the staff, I knew it was going to be a home run. From that standpoint, but then also just what he brings to the table in terms of toughness and intensity in how he competes every day in practice. And he kind of leads by example in that position. But I think he's really excited about coaching and the opportunities that it could create for him possibly down the road. And I think he's going to be a great coach. He cares deeply about it. He cares deeply about the guys. He really has a deep understanding of the work that it takes to be successful in this sport. It was a long road for him. It wasn't instant success. So, that's always nice to have as well. But, I'm thrilled to have him back on staff, and he's been great for our upper weights. Definitely needed to get somebody in here for Hunter Bolin to go with, and I think he's provided a huge challenge for Hunter in the wrestling room and a lot of our big guys.
Before we get to the schedule, we do want to point out October 19th is homecoming. Carolina's coming in for football. Anything wrestling related planned around the homecoming festivities at Lane Stadium?
We've got some recruits in this weekend, so we really don't have anything going on. As far as, around homecoming or, fan wise. So we're going to be tied up we've got 3 recruits coming in this weekend. So, hopefully lock down 1 or 2 more guys and spend some time with them. We'll do some matches on Friday, which we always do, for our guys and have them make a weight and kind of go through the process of, warming up, making weight, getting some nutrition in themselves, and then wrestling a couple matches on Friday and try to simulate what they're going to experience at the intrasquad, next week. And then obviously against Missouri on November 2nd.
As we get to the schedule, first we see Virginia Tech coming in ranked across the board by Trackwrestling, Flowrestling, W.I.N magazine, and the Open Mat. Haven't seen the coaches poll as yet because I'm the one who conducts it. I haven't sent out the ballots yet. We haven't seen Amateur Wrestling News or InterMat. But across the board, Open Mat has you guys 16, W.I.N and Flow at 17, Trackwrestling at 19. Thoughts on the rankings, which, of course, at this point, they're almost universally a tournament scoring rubric. So initial thoughts on where the pollsters, the pundits, have Hokie wrestling.
Could really care less, to be quite honest with you. I really could care less. I didn't know what we were ranked until you told me just a minute ago. It's really not my focus. We've got a lot of new faces, I guess, in the lineup this year from what we had last year. Ryan Blease is not in there. Billy Miller's not in there. Tom Slay is not in there. Zach Savatsky's not in there. Mekhi Lewis is not in there. So, I get it, I guess, where we're ranked. I think we've got the potential to be a lot better than that, but time will tell. Hopefully that motivates our guys. But we definitely have a lot to prove. I think Hunter Bolin is got a chance to do some great things this year. I think there's a lot of guys that have an opportunity to do some great things, but on paper, we've only got one guy in the lineup that's proven, that's had success previously at the NCAA tournament. And that's David McFadden. So, it is what it is. And, we'll hopefully improve on that.
To the schedule, the first time the Hokie fans will get a chance to see the team compete is on October 25th at 7 p.m. at Cassell with the intrasquad. Again, the intrasquad concept about 10 or 15 years ago really wasn't as big of a thing as it is now. In that era, it was just like the Lehighs, the Oklahoma States, those type of programs doing it. Now the majority of Division I teams are doing something like it. What's good about it from a coaching perspective?
Well, from a coaching perspective, I think it's good. It's just different. I think your guys, when you roll a mat out on the floor of Cassell Coliseum or the arena, and there's fans in the stands, and it's 7:00 at night, it's kind of more of the real real deal or the real thing, and it's just a little bit different level of intensity than competing in the wrestling room. And I think you really get to see the guys that are gamers that are going to show up, and you also get an opportunity to see these guys with a little bit of stress on them, stress in terms of just eyeballs on them, but also having to make weight in that whole thing. So for us, it's another good evaluation tool for us to see where guys can improve and get better, and where they need some work. And the thing about the inter-squad match is sometimes these guys know each other really well. They wrestle each other multiple times a week in practice. So sometimes you don't see guys go out there and light the scoreboard up the way you'd like to see them do that. And I think it's they're wrestling their friends, their teammates, and it's something that hopefully doesn't affect them, but unfortunately I think sometimes it does. So I think that's a big part of it, and just watching these guys compete and providing them another opportunity, a trial run to figure out how they want to tweak their system in terms of preparation, physically, mentally, the whole 9 yards. But then it's also great for our fans to get an opportunity to see some of these young guys wrestle, and hopefully we'll have matches, at least 10 matches, and we may just have some other ones that we pair guys up and have them wrestle so we can watch them compete as well. But hopefully everybody will be healthy, and we'll see some good wrestling. And I think in a few weight classes it'll probably determine the spot in terms of who wrestles at least against Missouri the following week, and then that's always an ongoing thing. But it's great for our fans because they won't get to see a lot of the freshmen that could potentially be redshirting throughout the course of the season that often. So I know there's a lot of people that are excited to watch our young guys, and hopefully that'll put them bring them to Cassell Coliseum, and they'll want to check those guys out because I think it'll be pretty exciting.
You mentioned Missouri. You don't waste any time getting into basically the teeth of college wrestling, facing off with Missouri in Blacksburg at Cassell on November 2nd, the kickoff weekend of college wrestling. You've wrestled the Tigers in the early part of the season the last couple of years, but why the opening weekend this year?
Just kind of the way it worked out. I mean, it wasn't kind of ideal. If I could have drawn the schedule up, I probably would have. We wouldn't have opened up with Missouri, but it just was when it could work out between the two of us, and it was really the only date we could get them on campus to wrestle us. It also was good for the Southeast Open because they're going to stick around and wrestle in the Southeast Open the following day up in Roanoke, so it adds a lot to that event. But with scheduling, it's a priority for me to get good teams on our schedule, and obviously Missouri they're not a good team, they're a great team. So sometimes you have to give a little bit in terms of when you wrestle schools like that, and Ohio State and Northwestern, and we've got a huge challenge in front of us our opening month of the season. So we got to make sure we're ready, and Missouri's beaten us 3 years in a row, I believe. So that's something that we have to correct. I've got a lot of respect for Coach Smith and his program and the way he runs it. I mean, the consistency that they've had success with, and just they're always good, and their guys always wrestle hard. It presents a lot of challenges, so we're excited about that opportunity and about that challenge, and hopefully our fans are as well.
Southeast Open is again a place where Hokie fans can see a lot of the roster competing. This one's in Roanoke. This year, let's talk location difference, similarities on the event, which take place again a day after the Missouri duel.
It's at the Berglund Center in Roanoke, so it's in the same venue it's been for the last several years. It has changed from the Hokie Open to the Southeast Open, and the reason that we've done that is because Flow it's going to be streamed live on Flow, and not to go too far in the weeds on it, but if it's a Virginia Tech event, if it's the Hokie Open, the ACC network has the streaming rights to it. Flowrestling can't do it. If we change it to the Southeast Open, and it's run by the Southeast Regional Training Center, we can sell those rights for the streaming to Flowrestling, which we've done. So that's the reason behind the name change on the event, which is going to be great. I mean, so people that aren't in attendance will be able to watch it live on Flow, and they'll have the rights to that event. So, but it's going to be good. West Virginia's bringing their whole team. I think North Carolina's bringing their whole team. UTC, a lot of the same teams that have been there in the past. Citadel started a tournament this year on the same weekend, an open tournament, and then Princeton started one last year on the same weekend. So our numbers might be a little bit down from where they have been in the past, but I think the quality of it's still going to be really good. And it's going to be great for our guys to be able to get hopefully 4 or 5 matches in a day. And I think at that point in the season, I don't think we really need a whole lot more than that. But also a great opportunity for our younger guys and guys that won't be wrestling against Missouri or may not be in the starting lineup this year for whatever reason, to compete, and for us as coaches to be able to watch these guys compete, because when they go to the Wolfpack Open or they go to the Edinburgh Open, a lot of times it's difficult for our coaching staff to get there because we're competing those weekends as well. So for me, I enjoy that aspect of it, is being able to watch some of these guys compete that I don't get to see a lot during the season.
Well, and any place is pretty much better than Ypsilanti, but we won't go there. It was recently released that on November 10th against Northwestern, the first mat on the Mound will take place at Virginia Tech's baseball facility, English Field at Atlantic Union Bank Park. Either last year or the year before, I saw Missouri and Illinois do an outdoor duel on the softball field, but weather permitting, what's the thought process of doing this with the baseball field?
Well, it's number one, it's an awesome venue. I think it's a perfect venue for us to do an outdoor match. And they just did I think it was a $20 million renovation to English Field or Atlantic Union Park, it's called. So the facility itself, it's just a very nice venue. I think it's perfect size for us in wrestling. I want to say just with the seats alone, there's 2,500 or 2,000 seats, and there's boxes, and they also have some other areas where you can watch the game, and you can purchase some alcohol and sit outside. So weather permitting, it'll be a fantastic venue to do an outdoor wrestling match for us. And I think we have an opportunity to pack it, just based on the size. It's not like we have to fill a 40,000 seat stadium or arena or anything like that. So I think size-wise, it's perfect. It's an awesome venue. It's something that I've been thinking about since the first time I was over there, and kind of got an opportunity to walk through the park and the stadium, and just, thought that it would be really unique and would be something cool, not only for our fans, but for our athletes as well, to be able to do this. And we're always trying to come up with new ways to make things entertaining and to kind of separate our program from maybe some of the other programs in the country. And the Moss Arts Center has obviously been tremendously successful doing that match over there every year. And I think we have an opportunity to do the same thing with wrestling at the baseball field here. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that the weather permits. But, we also want to thank Coach Storniolo and Northwestern for agreeing to do this. There's always a little bit of a risk in terms of wrestling outside when you're not sure what the elements are going to be. So again, hopefully the weather will be good, and I think it'll be a huge success, and I know that our fans will love it, and anybody that's ever been to that ballpark, I think, understands what I'm talking about.
What is the backup plan in case there is either a freak rainstorm or the atypical Southwest Virginia snowstorm in November? Yeah,
or if it's just too cold, we'll just move over to Cassell Coliseum. So it's not a big deal. If the weather doesn't permit, we'll make an announcement and we'll let everybody know that we're moving over to Cassell Coliseum. So, it's not like it's a huge risk.
Ohio State will host the Hokies at their new wrestling facility, the Covelli Center, on November 17th. Again, this is an opponent who's consistently been on the schedule. There's a pipeline of Ohio kids that come to Blacksburg. And how much of this is to make sure Hokie wrestling continues to grow roots in Ohio, and how much of it is getting that national caliber look for the starters?
Yeah, I just think you have an opportunity to wrestle a program like Ohio State, you got to jump on it. So, we've been trying to get, every year I try to get one of the top teams in the country on the schedule, and have got a pretty good relationship with the coaches up there at Ohio State. So when I reached out to Tom about it, and he was interested, it was, again, date-wise, it's not ideal for us, but I think either the pros outweigh the cons for sure. I mean, it's something that's important for us to wrestle the top teams and top guys in the country. And obviously Ohio State's, they're where we want to be in a few years. And, not only that, but then you get an opportunity to go into their new building, see their new building. We're actually taking a fan bus up there as well. And hopefully we can get some people maybe a tour of their new wrestling room, which if you haven't seen it is pretty amazing, and where they compete. So, we're excited about that. We're excited to wrestle in an atmosphere that's going to be difficult for us. It's going to be hostile. There's going to be a lot of fans. It's going to be loud. So with a young team, I think it's important that you guys see that before you get to the end of the season.
The Navy Classic, a small but dynamic tournament in Annapolis, is on the schedule during the Thanksgiving holiday, about a 5-hour run up 81, then over to the D.C. metro area. It's the first time I can recall the Navy Classic being on the schedule. What do you like about the tournament? And from a scheduling standpoint, where is it beneficial?
I think number one, it just fits into our calendar really good. We were looking for maybe a little bit smaller event that weekend where our guys can get multiple matches, have an opportunity to add to their win list and put some checks in the win column for those guys. So down the road, when we get to the NCAAs and the qualification system, those things are all important. So we're going to go into that thing and with our guys with the intention of winning it, and I think it's a great experience for our guys. It's also in an area where we have a lot of fans. So, a lot of Virginia Tech wrestling fans up in Northern Virginia, they'll have an opportunity to come over and watch us compete. And, it's a good event. I've been there before. It's definitely a good event. It's well run, and we're excited to get back to it.
Cliff Keen, Las Vegas Invitational. I don't really need to explain to the wrestling community what this is. Hokies going back. Big event. Big importance.
Yeah, it's as good as it gets during the college wrestling season. So, for guys like David McFadden and Hunter Bolin and, every guy in our lineup, they have an opportunity to see some of the best guys in the country. And, it's a lot like the NCAA tournament where you get to the quarterfinals, you get to the semifinals, you're going to see some stiff competition, and you're going to see guys that are ranked number 1, 2, 3 in the country in every single weight class. So it's a huge challenge for us. It's something we've been going to for a long time, and it's something we'll probably continue to do for a long time.
Closing out the calendar year with a home duel before Christmas with Chattanooga. Last year it was the duel with West Virginia around this time on the calendar. This time, Chattanooga. Good program, good relationship with the staff down there, even though it's relatively new.
Yeah, definitely. Relatively close. Give them a lot of credit for coming up here. They're going to be coming up to the Hokie Open as well, or the Southeast Open, so they'll be making 2 trips to Blacksburg this year. The dates, we were trying to do it on that Friday, but there's graduation at Virginia Tech that week, so we couldn't get in Cassell Coliseum, so we had to push it to the 21st. Coach Rochelle was really flexible with that, which I appreciate. We'll be going back to them next year, but we started doing this, I think it was 2 years ago maybe, where we started wrestling a dual meet, the 19th, 20th, 21st of December before we release our guys for Christmas break. And then for us, we're not, we don't do the Midlands. We're not doing the Southern Scuffle this year, at least with our starters. So we kind of pushed that Christmas break back a little bit for those guys. So, we'll release them to go home on the 22nd and then give them probably till the 27th or so at home with their families at the 28th before we bring them back to Blacksburg to start preparing for Central Michigan in the second semester. So I just like the timing of it. I like the idea of having a match before our guys take off to go home for Christmas. It kind of keeps them motivated and disciplined during that kind of lull that you have in the schedule after Vegas.
New Year will open up with a trip to Mount Pleasant, as you alluded to, with Central Michigan on January 3rd before the home duel with West Virginia January 11th. That's typically been a spot where Hokie Nation has been able to travel to the Virginia duels. That tournament working on bringing itself back as I work with it. The hurdles we're dealing with there are pretty apparent, but the tournament right now doesn't seem like a great fit competitively for Virginia Tech, despite the large group of fans who live out there. So maybe when it comes back to prominence, maybe Virginia Tech comes back. But right now, you've got that date filled with West Virginia and a guy you know pretty well in Tim Flynn.
Yeah, so we'll go back to Central Michigan. We owed Central Michigan from 2 years ago a trip back there, so we're going to go out there and wrestle Coach Borelli, and then we'll come back, and we go every weekend till the end of the season. So West Virginia coming in, that's something we want to continue to do with West Virginia. I'm sure that we'll keep that series going, and we'll go back to Morgantown next year. And again, Coach Flynn was actually really good about working with us schedule-wise. We originally had them November 2nd on the schedule, and when Missouri wanted to come in, I talked to Coach Flynn, and he agreed to push in that date. But they're coming down for the Southeast Open as well, so they'll be heading down this way twice this year as well. But that's a program that's getting better. I mean, they sent 5 guys to the NCAA tournament last year, and he'll definitely have them going in the right direction. So we're excited to have the Mountaineers on the schedule, and we'll keep that thing going.
As you allude to, every weekend, the next weekend, it's a trip to the Empire State with Binghamton and Cornell. You spent a year at Binghamton as the head coach there when they revived the program. Cornell going to be, I think the term red shirt we can't really use with the Ivy League, but a lot of their better guys are going to be taking years off to kind of train and try to make the Olympic team in 2020. But going up to New York, Binghamton and Cornell.
Yeah, well, we owed Cornell. Rob came down here last year, and we owed them a date. So we tried to kind of, get as much bang for a buck as we possibly can. And Binghamton's only about an hour away from Cornell, so we reached out to them, and we were able to get a home duel with them. They'll come back to us next year, which is nice. Perhaps Cornell will as well. We haven't really went that far down the road, but Cornell, despite obviously they're not going to be the same team with the guys out of the lineup, but they have a ton of depth there, and so their backups are pretty good, and they'll still be very, very competitive team. They'll still offer us a big challenge. So it's going to be a good weekend for us in weighing in back-to-back days, traveling to upstate New York. So it'll be difficult, I think, in terms of that, just having to deal with being uncomfortable, being away from home, having to make weight back-to-back days, which I think is good, helps our guys get ready for the end of the year when they have to do that at the NCAAs.
5 of the next 6 duels are with conference opponents as you close out the season with those duels, as you alluded to. From January 25th to February 22nd, you go home against North Carolina, on the road at Virginia, on the road in a non-conference duel at ODU, the Moss Arts duel February 8th against Duke, Raleigh February 15th to take on NC State before closing out the season at Pitt, before Dan turning around 2 weeks later and competing at the ACC Championships in Pittsburgh. So the question here is the ACC pretty much sets the conference schedule. So thoughts on how the ACC does that and closing it out, going duel to close things out with the way the conference is set up?
I like it. They dictate which weekends we're going to wrestle, which teams, and whether we're home or on the road. But it's good. I mean, it's when we get into the most important part of our schedule. Whether we want to admit it or not, the ACC dual meets are important, or maybe a little bit more important than some of the other ones. And getting ready for the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. So we got to make sure that that's when we're doing our best wrestling and we're healthy and we're peaking at the right time of the year. So, it's the ACC just continues to get better and better and better with North Carolina and Pitt and NC State and a lot of these teams improving significantly. So, it's getting tougher and tougher in the ACC, and we're excited to get North Carolina on campus this year. Obviously, we went down there last year and didn't, by any stretch of the imagination, have our best match. Kind of laid an egg down there. So to get them back here at Cassell Coliseum will be interesting. I'm excited to see how we respond to that.
Yeah, and any thoughts on how you expect the duel race to be this year? I mean, the last couple of years, it's been really competitive. Every duel, every team, it seems like comes down to one match making the difference.
It does, and I think it'll be the same this year. I think it's just getting closer and closer and closer, to be honest with you. I mean, there's very little margin for error in any of these dual meets, and we saw that last year. I mean, we lost NC State on criteria, and which was a crazy match, just some crazy individual matches that, a lot of things could have went differently. And really in North Carolina too, we you just can't afford to make mistakes, and we made some mistakes in that match. We lost one match with a hands to the face in the last couple of seconds. Corbin Myers kind of fell apart at the end of his match. His shoe came untied, and he had the guy got his choice. So it was you got to make sure that you're on your game and you're focused and everybody's ready to go. And we did a poor job of that last year when we went down to Chapel Hill and wrestled North Carolina. So hopefully we can change that this year.
Pittsburgh hosting the ACC Championships. They just came off the NCAA Championships a year ago, which kind of sets up the next question. The NCAA Championships this year in a giant football stadium about 12 minutes from where I live, US Bank Stadium, home of the Minnesota Vikings. Looking at the potential of nearly 45,000 plus wrestling fans in there. How's the ask been for tickets this year after what happened last year in Pittsburgh?
Well, we're getting close to releasing that process, and I think this year it's going to be a lot easier. From what I'm told, the NCAA is basically said, hey, you're going to get whatever you order. And in the past, that wasn't the way it was. You requested a certain amount of tickets. You knew you weren't going to get that many tickets, and you got what you got. Had we known last year that it was only going to be 40% of what we requested, we would have requested a lot more. I think there was a lot of teams that were much worse off than we were. But this year, if you want to go, you're going to be able to go. It's just going to be, to me, I guess the one thing that I'm curious to see how it plays out is exactly, how the viewing is and the sight lines and how far away the fans are from the mats in a football stadium. And when there's 45,000 people in there, it's hard for me to imagine. There's going to be a lot of people that are ways away. So hopefully, hopefully it works out well. I did watch the NCAA Final Four, which I believe was there, correct?
Yeah, it was the same spot. Yeah, a little different configuration because that little wooden floor has got to fit in that big facility. I still haven't been in the facility yet, so I know the NCAA is coming back through in December, I think, on a site visit. And the last time they were here, I think I was in Kerplakistan or something. So I'll actually get to see it, I think, in December with the mats laid out. So I will report back the findings
here.
You'll
have to let us know. Give us the inside scoop on how you think it's going to be. But as far as Hokie fans are concerned, we'll have some information going out to anybody who's ordered tickets in the past that is interested in going. They'll have to make sure that they submit their request for tickets when we do that, and it's going to be a lot earlier than it has been in the past. I anticipate that email will go out, and that information will go out probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
And as we wrap up, we also want to remind listeners that if you've got questions for the staff, email the show at insidevtwrestling@gmail.com. Maybe we'll even say them on the air. We'll give you a shout-out and a plug. Coach Robie, Coach Frayer, etc. We'll keep them on their toes and answer those questions on an upcoming episode of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. So, Coach Robie, any final words as we have practice started? The season's here. Next episode, we'll talk depth chart. But right now, schedule set, and Hokies have a lot of things to look for this year.
I think it's going to be an interesting year. There's a lot of unknowns this year, probably as many unknowns as we've ever had in terms of what the lineup's going to look like. A lot of guys that are unproven, but I think have the ability to do well. And as a coach, that's exciting. I mean, I'm excited to see guys like Cody Howard and Colin Girardi and some of these young guys that have shown a lot of promise, that I know have tremendous work ethic and have gotten a lot better, and we've seen some really good things from them. To see them go out there and put it on the line and see them have to perform consistently over the course of the season. I mean, those are the things that you really don't know how guys are going to handle that. So it'll be a fun year. It'll be an interesting year. Obviously, without Mekhi Lewis in there, that makes things a little more interesting for us. But I'm excited. Provides a lot of challenges for us as coaches and for us to hopefully do some of our best work this year.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.